Hey everyone, it's Ryan from Ryan O, and today we're going over Manhunt episode 3 today. And this is going to be a short one. This one is kind of more of a filler, basically trying to set up the future events on what's going on with the chase of John Wilkes Booth. So this won't be long. So we kind of start off with the very beginning of the episode where like Booth is imagining himself being sworn in as a second president of the Confederacy. And I really love that scene. It just kind of shows the that again, him being so egotistical and full of himself that he thinks because again he assassinated Lincoln, he's going to be the next president of the Confederacy. The Confederacy either survives the war or again he thinks he's going to lead it into a new war, a new rebirth of the Civil War. So I really love that, and I love how it's like the guy saying, "Oh, I got to take a piss." He's like, "What?" And it was the black guy they were following that's like taking them through the forest. I just really like that scene. Um, Two, we're seeing a lot of stuff in this episode dedicated to early civil rights movement. Again, we kind of see some scenes today with Frederick Douglass and Stanton, and they even kind of mentioned a bit. They didn't mention Stanton's approach on paying like Negro soldiers less than white soldiers or anything like I mentioned previously. And I don't think they will, but he did kind of say like that he could arm them, but it's under his Secretary of War or just he said federal, but I think it was kind of his own making that he could not really label them as federal soldiers, maybe like a militia or like a state militia of some kind. Again, they didn't really go into details, but they said we could do that and like arm black soldiers that way. But even Lincoln knew kind of, I think he had a feeling on what Stanton was saying or trying to do. But again, this is a show. In reality, it did go through. Negro soldiers were enlisted. Again, the 54th Massachusetts was one of the first and one of the major ones that actually helped show, hey, that black men are just as capable as white soldiers, maybe even better from time to time. And when a lot of these black soldiers and their white officers died, who died fighting for the early civil rights movement, Lincoln even saw a huge influx of former slaves or freemen, black freemen, that enlisted in the Union Army, and he even credited with them helping turn the tide of the war. So, and I mean, even at this point, the 54th and a lot of them and their white officers have been dead for a while. They died like a year or two before the Civil War ended. But I believe seeing a lot of these black soldiers in the Union Army, we're seeing a lot of them, even the one today, they seemed a lot articulate. So they were able to read and spell and talk. And I believe they're former freemen that enlisted. Many slaves were not taught how to read or write. It was actually against the law, and they could be killed by doing so in the South. So you got to kind of bear with it and see some of these scenes from this show with a grain of salt on that. But it was sad again to see that young black soldier get shot. Again, we are going to probably see a lot of this. I mean, it goes on even until Martin Luther King Jr. with the actual civil rights movement of racist white people either attacking or killing, labeling blacks as inferior or like attacking people. Again, in the civil rights, just black people sitting at a kitchen counter where like coffee was poured on their face, scarring their face and things just for sitting at a table. So in like at this point, we're kind of seeing a little bit of that, but again, it was more with a horse as the example that they can kind of get away with so far. We haven't seen what they're going to do, but I'm excited to see what they bring forth on the early civil rights of Africans after the Civil War. Again, with Reconstruction, it was a very hot topic at that time, and A lot of whites, even in the North, did not want them there. They did not want them to have freedom. So again, we will see, like in the show, a lot of the Southerners or even some of the Northerners in Union government even said, "Well, Lincoln isn't here anymore, so we can change it." So, and you kind of see that too with now President Johnson. President Johnson has changed his mind in this episode at least 3 times, if I was counting right. Basically saying that he wanted to arrest a lot of these former Confederates, possible executions. Even Stanton supported that. He really wanted to punish the South to an extreme level in real life. And in the show, they kind of show that. But Lincoln kind of puts him in his place, saying, "Hey, I don't want any more bloodshed, no more killings, no more hangings, nothing. Just I want Reconstruction, and I want Black people to be free. No more slavery." So we see Johnson kind of support this, but again, he does not really want to support Reconstruction. He is a Southern Democrat that, again, does kind of believe in some of the cause that the Southerners, because most of the Southerners, the Confederates, were Democrats. The Republicans were the ones that freed slaves. Even Northern Democrats still wanted slavery, or they did not support freeing blacks. They kind of said, "Hey, all right, well, if they are free up here, we'll give them little rights, or they can't own land, they can't vote, we'll take away certain things that they want, but hey, we'll give them at least a little bit of a title," or like something to that extent. Again, there's a whole list, so many books you can read on just how Northern Democrats and Congress treated even Black freemen, not even former slaves or anything like that. So I would really love to see that. But again, this show is more interested in the chase for Booth and again, what's happening with the whole conspirator plot, which again, I'm more fascinated with myself. But I believe we'll see some future events coming through here with whites, blacks, and the whole reunification of the United States. So with Johnson too, basically, again, did not support giving some rights to African Americans from the things I've read. But he kind of, I think, even in this show, it looks like he's being forced, and like his hand is being forced, which I kind of find funny in a way, because again, he changed his mind a few times. He was going to pardon all the Confederates. At the moment, they said not one's in power. So basically, that means they cannot rejoin the United States and be a congressman or a senator. Some actually kind of did. They found like a way around that. But it was kind of like, again, a difficult time of trying to figure out, how do we reconnect everybody? How do we bring this country back to healing? How do we bring ourselves back together? So again, you could see even with Booth was born and lived in Maryland. So again, it was right on the cusp of like slave state and free state, that how he treats Black people. Like again, this guy showing them around on horseback, taking them through the woods and like around the swamps. Booth does not like this guy just based on the color of his skin. And again, that's just speaking for someone born in the middle of the United States. If you're in the South, you treat them like slaves, like dirt, which is basically Booth is doing. But then other people born in the North treated them more kindly and fairly. But again, there were many that treated them just like slaves or worse. And we could see that with this guy who killed the one Black soldier boy for supposedly stealing a horse, which either that guy claimed was his, or he just saw a Black guy with a horse and he says, "Oh, he's stealing it." And again, there's a lot of hard R's and the N-word thrown around in this episode. So we'll have to see how this goes. But with Booth, again, I'm kind of just going to get away from some of that. But with Booth in this episode, I really like. It just shows, again, how egotistical he is, that when he meets the one guy that kind of helps support the Confederacy, part of their like secret service, um, and helps wire messages to and from, and like helps guide people, where he has his accomplices and his friends show them the way, like this ghost, which I have a story about that. But I just like how Booth is so eager to go to Richmond, and we already know, or if you don't know, that Richmond is in ruins. Again, this guy even says that, which I love. At least he's telling Booth this. Booth thinks he's, again, going to be a symbol and welcome, and they're going to restart the Civil War. Well, Richmond's in ruins. Jefferson Davis is fleeing. There's a funny story about him wearing a woman's dress, which was basically thrown around by Union soldiers. Many other Confederates have fled or are in hiding. There is nothing anymore. Again, the Lee surrendered. All these soldiers are going home. And some of them are not even capable of fighting anymore because of their wounds. So there's like no one left to fight. Again, if Booth wants a bunch of young kids or young boys, I mean, that's not even going to be a real battle. So I just love how, again, he is so full of himself, and he has this like grand vision, which, I mean, a lot of us have, I believe, as well. And that's just in our regular life. Again, he has like this, like, it's called an armchair general. And that's usually a term if you're playing like a war game, or if you think you read up on say the Battle of Gettysburg. So many historians or even people think, oh, I would have done this better. And that's called being an armchair general. But that term can apply to your regular life. So again, like, oh, if I knew this beforehand, I wouldn't have stolen that guy's job, basically, by lying and ratting him out, saying I could do the job cheaper or something like that. But again, that just shows who Booth is. I like how, too, this black guy showing them around. Again, I don't remember his name. But again, I know he's half Indian, he said in this episode, is calling David Harold, a lackey. And I really like that. Now, again, there's no real evidence to show that Harold was a lackey at all, to an extent. Again, he did have to help Booth a lot, especially because of the broken leg. Again, he did not bring that into effect, like he says in this show. Like, now all of a sudden they have to go on this long detour. They have to meet newer people that could jeopardize the whole escape plot, just because Booth broke his leg. Again, either on the stage or on horseback, which he kind of told a few people, like I told you in the last episode. If you didn't see that, check that out. So again, that is more dangerous. I understand that. But again, it just shows in this episode that, hey, some people think that just because you're with a famous celebrity, and again, we know that Harold did love Booth in a like-love relationship. He had a poster of him playing like Brutus or whoever it was on the wall of his shop. So it just shows that he's kind of really wanting to help support Booth. Again, we don't know really in the fact if David Harold did support some of the cause in the show. In reality, I believe he did on certain things. Again, it is mixed. Again, Harold was more of just them, like a guide. He was just trying to get Booth and, well, the other conspirators, of course, when everything didn't go wrong, he was supposed to take everyone down to Richmond. And then that's where they were supposed to either split up or kickstart a whole new thing. But I just kind of like how even in the end, like when he's trying to ask Booth to start a fire, like Booth is reading him the newspaper of him assassinating Lincoln to Harold, and how they're like using all this dramatization about it. And he loves reading that because it just fills his ego. Again, he's an actor. And like, again, they said that they thought he was a part of the play or what was going on, and then they saw Booth leap from the balcony and land on the stage. It just, you see a big smirk on his face, and Booth in real life did read a bunch of newspapers. And speaking of that ghost, like the ship ghost or whatever they called him, I believe this is just a combination of individuals that did try to help Booth and Harold. Again, former Confederate soldiers, people supportive of what he did, or just, again, people living in the woods. Again, Booth probably used an alias. Again, he did shave his mustache. Again, news traveled so extremely short. Again, by this time, Union cavalry is going by. Again, I told you Booth and Harold hid in like a little picket area, kind of like where they are in the show now. And you saw earlier a bunch of cavalry ride by, and the guide told them to get down. They literally were like seeing that for 3 to 4 days, day and night, and they were just hiding in like freezing cold. And I like how Harold again asks him to light a fire, and he just doesn't. He's like, you know what? It's going to be warm in the daytime. We'll make it. Just kind of Booth only cares about himself and wants to achieve his goal. So this just kind of shows, though, but again, I think that this ghost, again, is that combination of people. Again, he basically in real life, they did get a boat, and Harold was driving the boat, and kind of we don't know if either Booth messed up or Harold messed up with the directions. Again, basically they had to go across this giant river into Virginia. Somehow they got lost one way or another, and they kind of went up the stream of the river into another part of Maryland, and that kind of set them way off track, and now they're kind of in more desperate need of help than they were before. Again, they were a few days ahead of the cavalry. Eventually, then the cavalry started picking up their pace, finding news or information, and kind of gaining ground on Booth, especially because of that mess up with going up the river instead of across. But that's pretty much it with this episode. Again, there's not much to tell. Again, there's like only little tidbits. Some of the information is from like last week. I, again, hope you are enjoying these videos, so please comment and subscribe. It greatly helps me out, and I greatly appreciate it. Please leave a comment. I would love to read them. And again, I hope you do enjoy. So thank you. I'll see you all in the next episode, and just see you around. Bye.